It's the Mike Francesa Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
The Mike Francesa Podcast, and we welcome in an old friend and obviously a favorite to many, especially you Yankee fans, and that, of course, the one and only Bernie Williams. Bernie, welcome. How are you?
I am doing great, Mike. It's great to hear from you and great to talk to you.
My pleasure, Bernie, as always. And I see you're as busy as ever. How's the music business going?
The music business is going great. I am having a great time, even more now that things have been opening up. A lot of opportunities to play music outside of my room, which is always good. But it's going great. I'm becoming a better musician with time. And I'm more comfortable playing in front of crowds, which is always a good thing. I've been all over the place, playing in Chicago. I played in L.A. For the All-Star game. I'm going to have a little bit of the gig down there. And I am going to be at the Ridgefield Playhouse, my annual softball / outdoor concert event.
On August 13th, I know. But wait a second. Here's a guy who stood in the batter's box in a sold-out Yankee Stadium in front of 48 or 50,000 fans, screaming at the top of their lungs, millions more watching on television across the country, with games on the line, with pennants on the line, with World Series on the lines, and was one of the great clutch hitters, and never, ever even looked like you were breathing hard. And you're going to tell me you were nervous when you were playing in front of a crowd with the guitar?
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, playing baseball, it was great, but it's such a different dynamic. I mean, when you're playing baseball and you strike out or you fail and you're at bat, you can always blame somebody else. You can always say, oh, the umpire called bad pitch on me. Or I broke my bat. Or, this or that. And there's a lot of things that you cannot control. But in music, man, when that spotlight shines on you and you're playing your first couple of notes and you got everybody's attention, man, it could be nerve-wracking. But practicing, long enough and being more comfortable, within, that space has really helped me a lot. So I'm really happy, where I'm at, as it pertains to that.
Bernie, in baseball, it's right there in black and white. You either produce, you don't produce. The numbers are there. Everything is kept. There's a batting average. There's an on-base percentage. There's clutch hits. There's late game situations. There's everything. How do you know you're getting better as a musician? What tells you that you're getting better as a musician?
Oh my, that's such a great question. Because it's exactly what you said. You can actually, tell about the value of a player, of how good a career a player had, solely by the numbers. Some of these numbers will tell a great story about the player. In music, there's no points or lack of points for bad notes played, or bad.
Right.
There's nothing like that. There's no stats kept. So the way that I measure my success is through the places that I play and the people that I play with. I mean, if you have a guy like Bruce Springsteen saying, or willing to put in his name with me playing on stage, he's not going to try to embarrass himself. So he's going to try to associate himself with people that he believes that have some kind of talent. Mr. Paul Simon, and the list goes on. James Taylor, and on and on and on. They have been able to listen to me and create this sort of assessment that is not necessarily the novelty of the baseball player, but it's somebody that really has a great interest in music and really has a lot of passion for it as well. So every time I had an opportunity to play with people like that in places like Yoshi's in Oakland, the Blue Note in New York, the Ridgefield Playhouse in Connecticut, places like that. I mean, it tells me that I'm doing the right thing, and it just makes me even more motivated to keep practicing and becoming the best musician that I can be.
I'm Mike Francesa, the Mike Francesa Podcast. That is the familiar voice of Bernie Williams, who joins us now. I'll tell you where Bernie's going to be. He's even going to be in Saratoga this summer, which I'll get to in a little while. Bernie, as you get a little farther removed from your playing days, you go back, you get the appreciation of Old Timers Day, and the people who were there in the 90s and the early 2000s, now they have kids and they tell them, hey, here's the guy, this was my favorite. The adulation is always enormous. You're always one of the most popular figures on the day whenever you show up and are presented to the crowd. As you get farther away from it, what do you appreciate most about what you accomplished?
I mean, that's an awesome question, Mike. And my answer to that is that I appreciate, going back and looking in hindsight, the way that we were consistent year after year. We created a culture in an environment in that clubhouse with the Yankees, the years that we played that were, I haven't been able to see other places, or very few places that can equal, that camaraderie, that just environment of winning and everybody buying into the same philosophy, with Joe Torre at the forefront leading us. It was just an incredible experience. And, we were talking about numbers. The numbers showed, over that span of time, how great that team was. And it became sort of we all know how difficult it is to win championships, especially in this day and age, with people moving all over the place. We created an environment in which it was expected for us to win. And if it didn't win, we had a bad year. I could not see any team, very few teams in the history of the sports that you have that sort of expectations. But it was because of the team was that good for such a long period of time. And that consistency is one of the things that I really appreciate. And the fans appreciated that as well. Every time we go to Old Timers Day, they do appreciate, the fact that we had that great run, and it was highly entertaining for them.
Bernie, there was a number, and for your long and distinguished career, you played for your years that you played, for the years you were in the major leagues, I believe it was at one point, now maybe it changed the last year or something like that, but there was a point where you had played more winning games than any player for like those years. You were the winningest player for all those years. That's an amazing thing that sometimes, players, look at Mike Trout. He never wins. Look at these guys who are top players who never seem to even get to the playoffs. You played in winning games year after year after year after year. Did it become commonplace?
I think that the winning attitude became commonplace. And I think that's where you need to start with. We created, in that run, everybody in that team really thought that we had a great opportunity to win that game on that particular day. Every time we showed up to the stadium, we said, we're going to win this game. I was pointing out to 1998, which was a year that these Yankees are trying to emulate. It was just that. I could probably have a great time, just kind of like talking to those guys this year, talking about their attitude and how they are coming to the stadium thinking that they can win every game that they play. And that's kind of like what we were having, in that year. It was just an amazing feeling, and it kind of snowballed into having weeks and weeks of success. Maybe we will lose a game, we won it like every, 9 or 10 days. And it was just this commonality that we had, and this great attitude that we had, that we were just going to win. And it became commonplace, not necessarily the expectation of winning, but the attitude. And that would definitely propel us to win close games, to win tight games, to not really let up if we had a big lead. And having, obviously the great honor to play with Derek and Mariano and Paul and Tino and all those guys, Jorge, Posada. It was just a tremendous team effort. It was just a wonderful experience for me.
Recently the Yankees have gotten to the playoffs a lot, and they haven't won. This year, everyone's pointing to the phenomenal year, comparing it to 61, comparing it to 98. They have to prove they can win like those teams did. That's what made those teams great teams, is because they did win. They did dominate right through the postseason. Can you see anything that's different in this team than the last couple of Yankee teams? Do you see anything that stands out to you that looks a little different this year?
I think so. I mean, I think that obviously the emergence of Nestor has become, such a great thing, because I think maybe Cole was feeling the heat, being the guy, the guy that, everybody would have that sort of expectation for him to win every game. I think the addition of Nestor and all those guys, I mean, the emergence of all these people in the bullpen has created that sort of safety net when you have a lead, between the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning. Those guys are going to come in and are going to do the job. I think, it's a lot of similarities with our team when we have Mariano, and then we have Stanton and Nelson and all those guys, setting up the game for him. And also it is interesting to see, how they just find ways to win. If it's Stanton just hitting something, or Judge, or LeMahieu, or Gleyber, it seems like in these teams and these situations, it seems like every day there's a new hero, and everybody's kind of willing to take the reins and be that guy that is going to provide the heroics for the game on that day. And they are great spreading the wealth, playing a little bit of still swinging for the fences, which is, it's just the game that the way it's played, nowadays. But they have this attitude of just, working the counts and sharing the wealth, and everybody has this sort of this zeal that I'm going to be the guy that is going to win the game for us today. I think a lot of that is very similar to what we had in '98.
I think when you look back at it, and we're talking with Bernie Williams, when you look at it from '96. When the Yankees won for the first time in a long time, and you had such a great year and a great postseason, and then having that run in '98, '99, 2000, winning all those World Series games in a row, and winning those championships in a row, having won 4 in 5 years, winning 3 in a row, right like that, going to the World Series again, and after that in '01 and '03, I know we said at the time, hey, there's going to be a time we look back on these teams and realize just how special they were. But I think it's been even more so. It just shows, look at it, the Yankees have been to one World Series in 20 years. They won in '09. They haven't been to a World Series since '09. They've only been to one World Series since '03. We knew we were looking at something special, but when you realize, your teams won... all those, won 12 straight World Series, 14 straight World Series games in a row. And things like that, which just were utterly remarkable. Won 4 in 5 years, won 3 in a row. And now you look and see how hard that really was to accomplish. You realize just how special you and those group of guys were.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mike. You just kind of like, again, just pointing out to the culture and the environment that we had. I think, obviously I've said this a million times, but we got to give the front office and Mr. Steinbrenner and everybody over there that had, the decision to make of keeping us together, Cashman. They kept the core of the team intact, for the most part in those years. And I think that spoke volumes about, their ability to spend money, one, and two, they're, obviously creating this environment where you didn't want a lot of individuals playing on that team. We had a lot of team players that were able to spread the wealth. And I think, if I could go back to the Yankees this year, I think there's a lot of those similarities. And obviously, knowing that they have gone through so much adversity, this particular group they have been so close to being, in the World Series, and they haven't been able to do it. So I think, those bad experiences of coming up short have definitely had helped them this year, because they know how it feels to not be able to get it, to get it through. So I think, they knowing that, it's not like they're taking anything for granted. And I think a lot of that attitude has been very helpful for them this year as well.
You know, I asked Joe Torre once, I said, Joe, why do you think Bernie's so good in the clutch? And he said, I think Bernie has a pace and a motor, he said, that I think is a perfect timing and a perfect sense of proportion for that during the postseason, that you never got really hyped up. You were able to slow everything down. You took things like at bats and were able to be very calm in there. And, you know, that was the way you always were. You know, like Joe would say, hey, you know, Bernie could, you know, you'd be looking for him and he could be nodding off in the when we're having a meeting or, you know, lying on the couch somewhere. But you know what? I think that's why you were so good in the postseason. Do you think it was the ability to slow things down that made you so successful?
I think that had a lot to do with it. The ability to slow things down is one thing. Also, I would like to mention that, you know, as I kept myself sort of not getting too excited when things were going really well, at the same time, I didn't get too down if things were not going as well. So it's just trying to keeping that level head and you know, sort of like that neutral mentality where you are kind of thinking ahead to the next at bat and not really to put yourself in a position to celebrate too much when you're doing well, because then you're starting to forget, you know, that what lies ahead. So I think those two things were really helpful. You know, being able to slow things down, taking a deep breath, and taking command of the time that was allotted to me to do these things. I think, you know, the game has gone into this sort of attitude of trying to speed up the game because obviously the times that we're living. But there's something to be said about taking a deep breath and really focus on what you have to do in real time. That maybe years ago was nothing to really worry about. But I was one of those guys that would took my time. And if I did not feel ready, I would just be the first guy to call time out and say, hey, I need to reset my mind and get ready again. And I really make no qualms about that. So, taking control of the time that I was and being in the moment was definitely one of those things that helped me.
You know, it's funny. I remember mentioning to you, I said, you know, they should speed the game up. Don't let the batters step out of the box. And you said to me, no way, that's a tool for me. That's important. And you know who said that too to me? Big Papi. Big Papi said, the heck with you. I'm stepping out whenever I want. And you said the same thing. That's what I do. That's how I play the pitcher.
Yes. Because I think it's just a battle for time and controlling and being, being in ownership of that time that you are in the batter's box. And to me, the one thing that I would definitely feel a lot frustrated, at the course of the game was if I would go through an at-bat and I noticed that after the at-bat, I was not mentally prepared. I didn't have my thought process in place. I was rushed to do something. And going into those at-bats, coming back from them, I will feel the most frustrated because I knew that it was just a matter of taking control of that time and making sure that I was 100% in the moment to be able to execute, the way that I was expected to. Those at-bats were, for me, the most frustrated, man. But for the most part, I was able to, take my time. And I remember some of the umpires were trying to get me to go in the box. It was like, hey, man, this is my time. I need to do this. I'm not trying to show anybody off, but this is what I need to do to be ready.
Two things with Bernie Williams. I want to mention two appearances. One, the charity event, the softball game. First, he'll be at the Ridgefield Playhouse in Ridgefield, Connecticut on Saturday, August 13th. They'll have their traditional celebrity softball game and then a concert after that. And Bernie is bringing in a bunch of the old Yankees, including Mariano, Jeff Nelson, Willie Randolph, are already scheduled to play. Many others will be named shortly. After the game, Bernie will perform an outdoor concert right at the field at the Playhouse. For tickets and info, go to ridgefieldplayhouse.org. That's ridgefieldplayhouse.org. And then over Labor Day weekend, Bernie's going up to Saratoga to the spa, to the racetrack. And on Sunday, September 4th, he will be there for the Stars at the Spa Series. Bernie will be there from 12 to 3 at the Saratoga racetrack, which that day, I can tell you, that Sunday, Bernie, there'll only be about 55,000 people there on that Sunday, September 4th. That's about what they usually draw the day before it closes on Labor Day. Fans will have a chance to meet with Bernie. There's two different ways. At the new paddock suite, where 50 guests can be in the paddock suite overlooking the paddock at Saratoga. They have food and drink, and Bernie will be having a chat about, his career and music and everything else. There's also a ticketed meet and greet at the Jockey's Silk Porch that includes photo opportunities and signed headshots. So he'll be at 1 from 12 to 2, limited to 50 guests, and then the photo and autograph session from 2 to 3 at the Jockey's Silk Room right there at the legendary spa. So Bernie will be up there, and like I said, there'll be a small crowd of about 50,000 to welcome Bernie that day at the place. So you'll enjoy it. It'll be jam packed. So you can see Bernie up there over Labor Day weekend if you're planning to hit the spa sometime over the final days of summer. So Bernie's keeping busy, and I understand that you're in the wine business now.
Yes. The people from Millbrook Wineries up in Millbrook, New York. It was the oddest thing. I just showed up there last year. I was just riding my motorcycle, just kind of like, taking the scenery, coming from the CIA, the Culinary Institute of Poughkeepsie, took a sort of a reroute getting into Connecticut. And I just kind of ran into this winery, and I was like, let me just take a look and see what it is like. There was some music there. The place was beautiful. And I guess I had an opportunity to talk to the manager. The manager had an opportunity to, sort of exchange information. One thing led to another. We got Steve Fortunato involved. And guess what? Next thing I know, I'm blending some reds, and I'm coming out with my own Bernie Williams blend. And then we launched it a couple of weeks ago in a concert outdoors. And it was just the greatest time. It was just incredible.
So do you get heavily involved now? Have you gotten very involved in the business?
I'm heavily involved in the drinking part of it. But other than that, making wine is it. I definitely was able to understand a little bit of the process and gain enormous amount of admiration for the people that do this for a living, because you have to deal with so many things. Baseball players have so many variables that they cannot control. Talking about winemakers, you're talking about weather, bugs, everything that can interfere with a whole vintage of grapes. And they have to find that consistency. This is probably one of the hardest jobs that you will ever have. Trying to be one of the best. So yeah, definitely a lot of appreciation for those people.
And Old Timers Day is around the corner. How about that now? As the years go by, you're used to any player who plays on it. You guys played in front of full houses every day, and you were used to playing in front of 50,000, huge ovations. Now that isn't so commonplace, do you get a kick out of putting the uniform on like on Old Timers Day?
Oh my goodness, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And I'll tell you from two perspectives. One, when I was a former player, when I was a player, and now I'm a former player. But when I was a player, I used to see those guys coming in, and they would be like, wearing, normal clothes. Get, like Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Moose, Hank Bauer. You see all those guys coming in their, the normal clothes. As soon as they would put the uniform on, you would see them they were like the back in the 50s, and just kind of teasing each other and just having a great time. And I kind of had a little bit of a kick out of that when I was playing, but now I totally understand the whole dynamic. I mean, like a lot of nicks and pains. It's like all these post-playing thing. Two knee operations, 2 bad shoulders, and it's not ideal to walk around every day. Dealing with a certain amount of pain and whatever. As soon as I put that uniform on in Old Timers Day, everything disappears. It's like I'm 26 again, and I mean I just have the best time, just really feeling the warmth of the crowd, and all their appreciation, and just having an opportunity to hang out with all these players. We're kind of like the new generation of relics. The Yankees of the '90s. We're the ones that they call now, to do all these things. But I try never to miss a chance to do that, because it's just a great thing. It just kind of takes me back to all those years, that some of the best years of my life that I lived past, back in the '90s.
And listen, you also, no one knows if they're going to be someone who's that kind of crowd favorite. You are an enormous crowd favorite. You gave them a lot of thrills, a lot of victories, a lot of championships, but some guys just connect. You connected with the New York crowd. They loved you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I connected with them because ones that I never really took for granted, the fact that I was a New York Yankee. As a matter of fact, I even took it more to heart when I knew and really started realizing who I was trying to fill the shoes, in that position. I mean, when you talk about trying to be a guy that is playing the same position that Joe DiMaggio played, that Mickey Mantle played, like Mickey Rivers played, all those great Yankee center fielders. I mean, to me, it was just such a great honor. As I got older, I really got to appreciate it even more. It was just an incredible time. I was just so fortunate to be a part of that organization. Still am, and just to spend those years playing. People play for some time and never get an opportunity to even sniff the postseason. And it seems like every year of my career, I was involved in some postseason activity. The playoffs and the World Series. So it was just a great honor and such a great pleasure to be part of it.
Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's amazing how many years have gone by. It really is. But again, enjoy the summer. I know you're doing well. I'm glad everything is good. And we'll see you along the way. I'll probably bump into you before you know it. And, it looks like we'll have a busy October at Yankee Stadium, so I'm sure I'll see you there one time or another.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to that.
Thank you, Bernie.
So much.
Thanks very much.
Care.
Take care.
Absolutely.
Bernie Williams.
You're listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
One thing in closing, and we thank Bernie Williams for his time. A couple of weeks back, I got an email. And the email asked me, who did I think, all the team sports included, who did I think was the most underrated player of the past 50 years? So that's the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. Well, let's go from 1970 to 2020. That's the 50 years. The most underrated player. And I gave it a lot of thought. And what makes an underrated player? Can he get no attention? Did he get some attention? Did he maybe not play in the biggest market? Did he have to be underpaid? No. Did he have to not play on the best teams? No. The guy that I thought of, and I thought it had to be a great player that is going to be the most underrated. And to me, the guy that probably has slipped the nation's consciousness. Was he ever the topic of conversation? Was he ever the focal point? The answer is no, but he was prolific in so many ways. And the guy that I came up with was Tim Duncan. Every year he won. all the All-NBA teams, all the All-Star teams, all the All-Defensive teams, the championships, the MVPs, the postseason, the finals MVPs. But he never was a guy who had any sizzle, never was the guy who was talked about or debated nationally, never was the guy who was, he wasn't Michael, obviously. He wasn't LeBron. He wasn't Kobe. You can think of so many players who have gotten so much attention for what he accomplished and what his team accomplished year after year. Even his nickname, which Shaq gave him, which is the best of all his nicknames, the Big Fundamental, just shows you that his fundamental nature was his highlight. His dependability was his highlight. That he could be relied on always. And he always came through. That's the highlight. So I'm sure someone might have a different opinion. Tim Duncan did win MVPs. He did win 5 championships. He did make over $245 million as a player. But I think he was the guy. I really gave this some thought. And I even asked some different people. And the guy I kept coming back to was him. So I said I'd answer it. And that's my answer. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.